Hello, Hammers! Just a quick reminder to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts below, so you never miss the latest updates on West Ham United. The day began, as so many others in the world of West Ham United, filled with rumors, names scattered everywhere, and that familiar feeling that there is far more noise than clarity. Proper rumors, as people like to say, the kind that gain weight simply through repetition. Manchester City goalkeepers, strikers across Europe, promising midfielders and aging forwards. West Ham, as ever, seem linked with half the footballing world. There is a popular claim that the club never signs any of the players they are linked with. That is not entirely true. The reality is that West Ham do not sign most of them. Yet, almost without fail, one name from the endless speculation eventually does pull on the claret and blue shirts. Right now, there is a growing sense that this moment is approaching again. The volume has increased, the urgency has sharpened, and this time the context of the season makes everything heavier. In recent weeks, the list of linked players has become almost absurd. Adama Traore had already been dissected at length. Before him came Onyedika, Adnan Jashari, Jacob Ramsey, and Harvey Elliott, all mentioned. All ultimately dismissed. Still, it is worth remembering that among countless rumors, the club did end up signing Matheus Fernandes. It serves as a reminder that buried within the noise, there is occasionally a genuine signal. Alongside this came an extensive report published by a former club employee, a dense and detailed briefing that poured fuel onto an already volatile social media environment. One particular point sparked outrage: the suggestion that centre-back was not currently the top priority for head coach Nuno Espirito Santo. That alone was enough to ignite online fury. Yet a calmer reading of the situation tells a different story. It is not that a centre-back will not be signed, but rather that discussions for strikers are further advanced at this stage. Priority does not mean exclusivity. It is entirely possible and sensible to reinforce the defense while addressing the attacking shortcomings that have plagued the side for months. Within that framework, one name keeps resurfacing: Charlie Cresswell, young, English, a defender with bite and room to grow. It is no coincidence that respected journalists such as Jacob Steinberg and David Ornstein have both pointed to West Ham's interest in him and in additional central defenders. The club understands that action is required. The urgency is not rhetorical. A statistic heard almost in passing sums it up brutally. The current gap between the bottom three and the rest of the league is the largest since the Premier League began. Cold numbers, but alarming ones. If West Ham do not move, if they do not recruit, invest, and react, the threat of relegation ceases to be abstract and becomes mathematical. And it is against this tense, unstable backdrop that the first genuinely concrete developments emerge. They do not involve arrivals, but departures and decisions that divide opinion among supporters. From here, the story begins to take clearer shape. Before we carry on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. This is really important because it strengthens the claret and blue family, making our West Ham bigger and stronger every day. The first concrete move of this window does not concern an arrival, but a departure. West Ham United are in discussions with Sporting Lisbon regarding the sale of Luis Guilherme. This is not loose speculation. The talks are real and have been developing quietly for some time. For those close to the club's inner workings, the news merely confirmed what had already been circulating beneath the surface. It must be stressed that breaking this story does not equate to enthusiasm for the player's exit. Quite the opposite. Luis Guilherme has never been given a genuine run of opportunities. 3 managers have come and gone, and none truly committed to him. The current reasoning is brutally simple. He has not been played recently to avoid the risk of injury before a sale is completed. Still, something about the situation feels odd. He was never loaned out, barely featured for the under-21s, and remained in limbo while the club drifted dangerously close to the relegation zone. Should the worst happen and West Ham drop into the Championship, Luis Guilherme would likely be among the division's most dangerous wingers. Viewed purely through a footballing lens, selling him now feels driven more by pressure and pragmatism than sporting logic. Yet facts outweigh preferences. The deal appears to be progressing, and all indications suggest that the Brazilian is on his way out. A quiet, uncomfortable decision that speaks volumes about the club's current state. Next comes a rumor that demands skepticism. Chris Wood, the Nottingham Forest striker, has been mentioned as a possible target. The link is obvious. He enjoyed productive spells under Nuno Espirito Santo, but context makes such a move highly unlikely. Wood's Premier League history offers a revealing parallel. When Newcastle United signed him from Burnley, both clubs were locked in a relegation battle. The logic was not simply to strengthen Newcastle, but to weaken Burnley directly. It was a strategic, almost ruthless move, and it worked. Applying that same logic now, it is hard to imagine Forest strengthening West Ham, regardless of whether Wood is viewed as effective or expendable. Selling him would be perceived as helping a direct rival, and that is not how clubs in this part of the table operate. There is another telling detail. Members of Nuno's coaching staff were previously retained by Forest specifically to avoid bolstering West Ham. The message was clear: no favors. At 34, with recent injury issues, Wood feels more like a name floated into the conversation than a realistic option. Another name surfaced briefly and should be treated as such. Dusan Vlahovic, linked with AS Roma, appeared among the rumors without substance, context, or progression. A name released into the ether and promptly parked there. Attention then returned to Adama Traore. There is no new information beyond what has already been discussed. More outlets repeating the same line, confirming West Ham's interest. The file remains open, but there are no fresh chapters. The next story borders on the surreal, right? The Coventry City striker was reportedly one of Nuno's top January targets. Coventry's response, under Frank Lampard, was to quote figures so detached from reality that the negotiation instantly became a punchline. Case closed. From that farce emerged a more grounded alternative. Ellis Sims, Wright's teammate, is now viewed internally as a far more attainable and realistic target financially and structurally, given the club's current constraints. Finally, an old chapter closes. Nicolas Fullkrug is on his way to AC Milan, a 6-month loan, wages covered, with an option to buy Forge. Footage of his arrival in Milan has already surfaced, composed, well-dressed, unburdened, a conclusion that no longer stirs emotion, merely draws a line under a long-running saga. But anyone thinking the list ends here would be mistaken. The next name changes the tone entirely and demands closer attention. Before we carry on, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. This is really important because it strengthens the Claret and Blue family, making our West Ham bigger and stronger every day. We now reach the most delicate and perhaps most revealing section of this entire rumor cycle. A name that does not generate instant headlines, but carries weight because of who introduced it. Review Duros, difficult to pronounce, low profile, and operating far outside the usual Premier League spotlight. Durasinmi currently plays for Victoria Polzik, a club competing in the Czech League. He is a 6'4" striker, 22 years old, Nigerian, physically imposing, and beginning to post numbers that attract attention. 2 goals in European competition, 7 in the domestic league, including a spectacular overhead kick that traveled quickly across the continent. A proper physical presence, the kind of striker who occupies center-backs and brings unavoidable chaos into the penalty area. There is an important detail that elevates this story. Nearly 2 years ago, Durosinmi came close to signing for Brighton and Hove Albion. That alone matters. Brighton have built their reputation on identifying talent early, before others move. When they take an interest, it is usually worth listening. Yet the player himself is only part of the equation. The true significance lies in the source. The information again came from a former West Ham employee, the same individual who, last summer, demonstrated unsettling accuracy, while most discussions centered on Habib Diarra, who eventually joined Sunderland. This source instead flagged El Hadji Malik Diop. At the time, nobody else mentioned him. Shortly after, West Ham signed him. That track record changes the context entirely. No claim has been made that Durosinmi will definitely arrive. The message was measured. If no value can be found domestically, the club may turn its attention towards him. Not a promise, but a contingency plan grounded in scouting and observation rather than noise. And here, the true picture of this transfer window becomes clear. West Ham are not merely throwing names into the air. There is desperation, yes, urgency, undeniably, but there is also a visible attempt to balance risk, cost, and potential between aging forwards, inflated domestic targets, and under-the-radar profiles. The club is walking a dangerously thin line. Ultimately, everything circles back to one uncomfortable truth. Reinforcements are no longer optional. This is not about preference, patience, or philosophy. The squad needs immediate impact, and perhaps one or two bold gambles. Survival in the Premier League depends on it. When the full list is considered, Guilherme heading out with unlikely absurd valuations dismissed. Fullkrug already gone, and Cinemi emerging from nowhere. It becomes obvious that this will not be a graceful transfer window. It will be functional, or, in the worst case, insufficient. The supporters know it, the club knows it, and time, once again, has stopped being an ally. So that's all for today, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, leave a comment, share, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more. Take care, and I'll see you next time.